Hi everyone, and welcome to Long Live Crypto, your entertainment and engagement hub for all things crypto and Web3. I'm your host, Adam Mastrelli. I've been working in crypto and blockchain for over half a decade as an angel investor, at the corporate level, as an LP in crypto hedge funds, and as a current partner at the Woodstock Fund. The topics covered in this podcast are provided for general information purposes only and do not constitute accounting, legal, tax, or other professional advice. Thank you for listening. If you've been enjoying Long Live Crypto, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's a great way to help others find the show.
All right. I've been trying to figure out how to start these things, and I do like my Matthew McConaughey, Dazed and Confused. All right. Intro. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Long Live Crypto. We have Don Thibeau here today, the Chief Product Officer, CPO at NFT.com, which we'll get into. So I think this is probably going to be Long Live NFTs. But we're also doing another fun experiment here where my producer, Dan, is joining us. Dan, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you know about crypto?
It's worse than 0 because I only know what stand-up comedians joke about crypto, which I'd imagine is probably so far off of the truth.
Even better. I am not only a crypto fan, but I'm a big stand-up comedy fan. So Dan is an incredible stand-up comedian. He has his own podcast called Culture Clash. Check it out on all of the mediums. And so we're going to do an experiment today where we're not only talking about crypto, but we're adding in some comedy. It's two things that I love. So let's go for it. How do we feel about that, gentlemen?
Sounds great.
Yeah, I'll bring the comedy. The knowledge is limited. So one of the things will happen.
No pressure, Dan.
Yeah.
Okay, so Don, I've known, little context, I've known Don since probably like 2018, 2017, since when I first got into the blockchain space at IBM. I was doing my own investing outside of that. And Don was already like, wonder kidding it before Wunderkid. Before that, kind of like right out of school, crypto native, always worked in crypto and blockchain. So Don, I'd love to hear a little bit about your background, how you got to be doing all this, and then a little context on NFT.com, which candidly sounds like the easiest thing for people to understand, thankfully, which is NFT.com, like awesome domain. So over to you, my man.
Yeah, we'll see how that pans out. But there's kind of this trope in the space where everybody says what price they bought Bitcoin at as a sign of how early they were. I like to say that I didn't have any money, so I did all I could, which was bet my time and joined you at IBM as my first step out of college and step into the blockchain space. And, there I think we got a great experience learning about how everybody from banks and supply chain companies to governments and healthcare companies was using this technology for, their future applications. But ultimately, during that experience, I really realized that the majority of innovation and excitement was really going to be happening in the public cryptocurrency space. So after IBM, I left to join a startup called Hedera Hashgraph, which was really looking to build a public cryptocurrency network with their token HBAR that could be used not just for things like banking, payments, applications, government, supply chain, digital identity, but also for things like NFTs, like decentralized finance, and really supporting a much broader developer ecosystem. So I helped launch that network, spent a little over 3 years on the Hedera team helping to grow the developer ecosystem and the product, and then took a brief break from product to create an organization called the HBAR Foundation. And that organization really set out to provide support in the form of grants, investments, and incentives for people building in the space, because ultimately that's really what makes this space so dynamic and interesting, is just the amount of innovation that's going on from individual developers or small startups across the globe. But ultimately, I am a builder at heart myself. And so when the opportunity came to join up with a former colleague, Jordan, and help launch NFT.com, I couldn't pass it up. So that's where I am now as the Chief Product Officer, getting ready for our first public launch.
I love it. And yeah, love Jordan Freed, love everything at Immutable Holdings. And good journey. I always am jealous of product people because I think it's like a superhero skill. So let's pause here. Dan, based on that, we're going to catch it up. NFT.com. based on your assessment, deep knowledge of the crypto industry, what do you think NFT, and without having looked at it, what do you think NFT.com is and or does in the larger crypto ecosystem? No pressure.
Yeah. So this is coming off of some really deep insider information that may or may not be completely wrong. NFT.com, is it an NFT marketplace? Is that it? No.
One for one.
What? Yeah.
No, yeah.
I got it.
One for one. So far, so good. Keep going. I'm going to let you do the pitch.
I think that's the power of branding. It's like, well, what else? It's NFT.com. What else could it be? So I think it's a marketplace. Exactly right. Yeah. Maybe a place to like, I know you can't like really store it, but maybe like is it like a centralized place where you can maybe like an NFT wallet type thing?
Now we're moving away. Adam, let me know when you want me to jump in. But Dan, Dan, let me tell you something. I like the use of the word marketplace. I mean, out of nowhere, you threw in marketplace question mark. I did like the question mark.
Well, I've got some experience with marketplaces. I just bought a couch off of Facebook Marketplace, so I feel like that's probably. I mean, it's got to be the same thing, right?
That's a great tagline. Were you thinking of buying a couch? You know what? Buy NFTs.
Yeah.
NFT.com.
There you go.
So Don, it's a marketplace. We got that, but like, give us an overview of how somebody would interact, because we don't have to go back. I think everybody listening to this podcast is like, NFTs, get it, digital ownership, etc., IP for the future. But what do you do with this stuff other than own my ape, own my punk, or as a collectible? How do you make it real?
So, I like to really start out with talking about the problems that we set out to solve with NFT.com. So when we started our journey of building the project, we really identified 3 problems that were stopping NFTs from reaching that next level of growth. One is that access is complex. You have to install third-party wallets, go through the whole rigmarole of getting different cryptocurrencies to then even connect to an application, let alone figure out what it is you want to buy. Second is that liquidity is fragmented. Dan mentioned marketplaces. We're at the stage of the industry where every store, every company, every brand is launching their own marketplace. And so you have to go different places if you want your Reddit avatar versus your NBA Top Shot versus your Nike, digital shoe. But last, and I think most importantly, social data around these NFT communities is incredibly limited. So I like to say that pseudonymity got us this far. It's great that users control their own social presence, but the Pacers wouldn't want to issue an NFT to Adam, they wouldn't want to issue an NFT to 0xAB7, whatever. They would want to issue it to Adam because they know that he went to the Taylor Swift concert and bought 7 pink t-shirts that he can wear to the gym every day. They want to know who he is to actually drive that engagement with him.
You know me so well. The Indiana Pacers, Taylor Swift, and pink t-shirts is probably, that's probably going to be my NFT profile.
Exactly right. And so that's really, the problem that we set out to solve with NFT.com. It's part marketplace, a place where you can buy NFTs wherever those NFTs exist, whether that's a different marketplace or eventually a different chain, and part social network where you can take that collection and promote it through a profile, much like your Instagram profile, which instead of being controlled by a centralized company, is an NFT itself that you own, you control, you customize, and you can use to promote you. And that's really what we've set out to build with NFT.com.
Before we get into the super weeds, I love examples and I love stories, right? I'm a narrative guy. So let's use Dan as an example, right? Dan is a creator. He's headlining in Fort Worth, in Dallas, in Austin this week. He's back. He's got a cool beard. People know him, but don't know him. He hasn't been on a big TV show yet, but he could, right? And he's building his audience. So he comes to you as a creator and says, Don, how do I weave in? And if right now I'm putting all my stuff either out on a podcast or on YouTube, but I want to do something with NFTs. I hear it's sexy. It's cool. What does he do? How does that benefit him otherwise from a Web 2 perspective that we know and love?
Well, the first thing I would definitely encourage Dan to do, just as a person, let alone a creator, is go and get familiar with NFTs. If you go to NFT.com, you can actually mint your first NFT that represents you. You can get an exclusive username like you would on Instagram or Gmail or Twitter that represents you. Maybe it is Dan the comedian. Maybe you're lucky enough to just get Dan because you're super early and now you're the first one there. You can find then different NFTs that have been created, whether it's, digital artwork, maybe it's actually photos from a show for a different artist, maybe it's something, for a game or other application. But once you've created your profile, you can then use that profile for whatever you want. Maybe you want to just buy, your Bored Ape and show off how cool you are with your NFT profile. Or you want to create your own collection. Again, maybe it's show clips, maybe it's pictures you've taken in your travels. And you can also connect that collection to your profile. Now, the beauty of the profile is that not only is it something that you control and customize, but you can access it through NFT.com/Dan, that cool kind of vanity URL that's understandable to the majority of users and can be used to promote your content however you want. But ultimately, once you do that, it's all about building community. Share your link on social, tell people where they can find whatever it is that you're doing, and use your social identity to promote that.
And then, Don, how does that work that it's different from Dan the Comedian, Twitter.com/Dan the Comedian? Like that, you know what I mean? Like, how is it different and how is it? Because I can see Dan chomping at the bit already. I hear him typing in the background. He's pulling it up. I think he's going to reserve. Dan, what are you reserving? What name do you think you would go on? NFT.com/what?
It'll probably just be Dan, Italian last name, and then just spell out Italian last name because there's so many that that's the corner that I'm going to market or the market that I'm going to corner.
I do like that.
Yeah.
I do like
You might be early enough to get that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, go for it, Don. Sorry to cut you off.
No, so I think actually, why don't you go? I forgot the question.
Oh yeah, no. The question is something like he could do that on Twitter, Twitter.com
sure.
/ like Dan the Italian,
Yeah.
Dan Italian last name, and then he's tweeting and people are hitting him up. Hey, come see my show or whatever. How is the NFT.com experience a little bit different than that?
So I'll talk about it in two ways. First is that the profile is an NFT itself, which means it really acts as a decentralized identity. Now, to most people, that really doesn't matter or mean much, right? They just want something that represents them. But in our case, that profile is in your control. You can own it, trade it, buy it, sell it, customize it, even in the future, maybe more complex things that help you rent out that digital piece of cyberspace that's yours. It's also portable. So we expect third-party applications could also integrate to Dan's profile. So it's not just through NFT.com, but any other application that profile can be used to represent you. But uniquely on NFT.com, there's also benefits, much like there are Amazon Prime benefits for Amazon.com. So you get things like no or much lower trading fees. You might get exclusive access to different features, different parts of the NFT community, or different tools for creating your collection. So it gives you also those membership-like benefits that really help drive people to services and get more value from those services over time.
Okay. Dan, your knowledge now on crypto and NFTs is at about a 0.8, up from -2, which I think we started at.
Yeah.
What questions do you have for Don? Really, someone who's been doing this for a long time, knows his stuff, wearing the sweater, right? In Jackson, Wyoming, which is, do you know what I mean? Oh, we don't want to dox you too much here, Don. But you can tell it's cool, right? He's not in San Francisco, he's not in New York, he's not in Miami. It's like building, he's Yellowstoning it a little bit, out there on a ranch, I'm sure. Like, what kind of questions would you have as a 0.8er?
Yeah, I think it sounds like it sounds intriguing. Like, is this? Do you think does this get around the kind of problem of do you see it as a place to build an audience or community, or customer base outside of, I guess, the traditional social media spheres? Because that sounds appealing. If it's a place that's away from Instagram, TikTok is going away, everybody, it's when does Biden sign the thing is kind of how creators have to treat it, because, that's 100,000 people, if you're a creator, gone. So do you see it as like kind of like a platform, not agnostic way, but just like a way that's kind of for people to interact? It's kind of outside of like funnel people from social media to NFT.com. Yes. But like, do you think that's like a valid use case? Cause that's all creators care about is, you know, what does this platform offer me compared to, you know, other platforms?
That's really the value proposition behind the NFT space as a whole, and that's community formation. And I like to describe it as, you know, bidirectional community formation. Not only can a creator or an artist directly reach their fans without needing to necessarily go through centralized platforms or through intermediaries, but fans can also directly engage with and participate in, you know, however you want to measure participation, with their creators, the brands that they're a fan of. If you look at what's happening in communities like Doodles or Bored Apes or the Nouns Project, you see holders of these collectibles as able to actually reuse those collectibles, whether they want to create a cool designer shoe, a full cartoon, or any other, you know, content that they themselves want to create. And that in many ways also adds value back to the original creator in kind of whole new, unique ways. But back to my, you know, Adam at his Taylor Swift concert analogy, the creators also get that better visibility of fan engagement. They know that, you know, Adam is not just a fan of this sports team, but also these artists. And here's how he chooses, you know, to represent his identity with those creators. So I think just bringing those creators and their collectors, their fans closer together, is really what makes this technology so powerful. And I think it's really going to bring it to that next level of adoption, because more and more creators, more and more brands are entering the space every day, really to achieve that outcome.
I get it. I'm the problem. It's me. I've heard it enough. The Taylor Swift. Okay, Dan, you might be at a 1.2. I think you're moving up the ranks. And good question. Mm-hmm. Let's jump out of specifics of NFT.com. And Don, I want to talk about your career and your position, right? So CPO, as we've said offline, I mean, I think product people and chief product officers are just superpowers, right? You can do venture, you can be a dev, but you can so walk me through like what a chief product officer does and why it's so important. Because I've drunk the Kool-Aid. Drunk, Dan? Drank?
Drunked it.
Drunked it?
Yeah,
I've drunked it. Drunked it,
yeah.
The Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
So why is product so important just for everybody else? I know it is, but why is it?
I think the simplest definition I would give is that you're responsible for ensuring that all of the activities that are going on around you are being done to help solve a problem for a user. A chief product officer, product manager, the product function is really responsible for saying there is a need in the market for this set of users. We think that we can solve that problem with some unique solution. And here's how we're going to marshal all of our resources to build that solution. So, you know, I like to sometimes describe it as air traffic control. You're helping to ensure that different functions in a business, whether it's engineering, design, in my case, you know, marketing and business development, are all aligning to that problem in the market and making sure that you're building the solution and then articulating that solution well to the market. So it's a very cross-functional role, one that I have always loved in its nature as that, and as kind of being a builder at heart. But it's a ton of fun, and there's rarely 2 days that are alike.
Well, you're a builder, but also like you're super organized, right? So you're always, it always seems like you have an answer for everything I'm going to ask, and like you're almost inceptioning me. I can't speak today. You're like incepting me on what to ask you. So how do you talk about like time management, your time organization? Do you block off like, hey, Mondays at this time, I don't take phone calls, I'm only doing this? Like, how do you structure your week and then lead a team of others to kind of into the promised land?
I think it's looking at my time like I would any other project. And that's, you know, creating the to-do list on a Gantt chart that I then move from, you know, sitting on the icebox to in review and to done, and just kind of be diligent about what gets added to that list what can be delegated or worked on with others, and what needs to be top priority that I spend my time on. I can't say I'm someone that blocks off time on my calendar, but I'm a firm believer of inbox zero, at least as best I can, to keep some of those to-do items lower.
I like it. Dan, now that's got to ring true for you a little bit. Like, you're the chief product officer of your own comedy, right? Of your own joke. So how do you work through when you, any correlation here between what Don was talking about of moving something from, hey, I think that's funny, to like, is that funny? And then you go on stage, it's like, well, now you're going to have to judge. I mean, that your user base gets the feedback like instantly, right? I mean, it's not like you don't have to wait to acquire users. They're in the club, waiting to laugh or not laugh.
Yeah, I think we're both beholden to the user, even if the user is wrong. Like, they're wrong. It's like, it would be easier I really think it would be easier if things went this way, but you're kind of dealing with the unconscious person of like, now if I have to think about it, then I can't use it. Are you kidding me? So yeah, I would say that we probably both get user feedback that is needlessly harsh for no reason. But it's completely like, you can't, I think that kind of the idea of like experimentation of like, here's a thing I made, I think you guys are going to like it. And there is kind of like a letting go of like, hey, you guys really need to mess around with this. We need to test it. Like, we're opening up to all of you. And unfortunately, all of you have a say in how this goes. I think mine is the difference between product and comedy is, imagine you were on a stage and got immediate feedback from the people who used your product, or no feedback, which is scary. The silence is
dead silence.
Worse.
Don, how's the heckling in the NFT community? Are you getting heckled at all? Or maybe that's Twitter, right? If you're putting something out, who knows?
Well, look, I think I have the same experience of the feedback reception process, but the luxury of being able to hide behind a computer in my reaction to it. So I'd imagine that's the tough part, is your reaction to the reaction must be tough sometimes in real time.
Yeah,
I love it. Don, go Dan.
No, that's and then also just the thinking like, I mean, the user is always right, and then it shocks me how often I am wrong as somebody who's like, I really think you guys are gonna like this, and they're like, nope, there's preconceived notions of comedy that we're following, and topics and subject matter, and that's what we like. And it's like, all right, fine, I guess I do have to play in your rules.
And I don't think this is a far reach to say comedy and product. So people may have done this before, people may have not, but I think we're breaking ground here. On this clip is potentially NFTable.
There you go.
Don, let me jump into like bleeding edge of NFTs, maybe a little bit more technical. In the crypto world, we hear a lot about bridging or ZK knowledge proofs. So can you just walk us through, now that we get the basic concept of NFTs and we've used an example of comedy, and now we're doing some things like, what else is coming down the pipe of like features that we don't think of, or we might not think of, that are really exciting, that people are either adding to the ecosystem or that you're excited to explore and build into NFT.com?
Yeah. So I think the idea of an NFT as artwork is very easy to grasp, right? It's a digital picture that you can buy and sell. I think we see variants of that. Again, artwork, profile pictures, animations even. But there's more and more use cases now being built with that same primitive of a unique, scarce digital resource that can be owned and traded. There's a lot of interesting work going on in the gaming space, where you can have a sword that you use in a game that you can also buy, on a NFT.com like marketplace. There's also a lot of in-person event-based innovation. So things like ticketing, access passes being represented as NFTs. For Taylor Swift, there you go.
The show is not sponsored by Taylor Swift, by the way. Just
there you go. The supply chain space, for traceability. But I think one of the most interesting ones is how NFTs are becoming really themselves actually more programmable and more like applications than digital collectibles. So the analogy I like to use, it's like if you were to download, Flappy Bird or Tetris on your phone, that application could actually itself be an NFT. So the X NFT, protocol and standard work that's going on is an early indication of that. And I think that's going to really unlock a whole new set of value for how NFTs can become this whole other asset class, really.
Don, dig into that a little bit. I'm not quite clear on that. You're saying, so can you talk about the programmable NFT? And what did you say? It's XNFT?
That's right. That's one of the standards.
Can you just break that down
developed.
A little
bit? Mm-hmm. So an NFT is really a smart contract or a set of computer code that provides instructions as to what that digital collectible represents. It points to a file service that says, here's the image. It could also be something that says, if in DeFi, a user provides this token, give them that token in return. You really just create that application to say, or that code to say and be interpreted however you want. And so some of the work that's going on with things like XNFT are essentially saying, this NFT doesn't just point to an image or a collectible, but it's a game. It is a full, almost Web 2-like application that you install on your phone, but has those core properties of being owned, by the holder, could be easily tradable, sold, resold. You can have things like royalties built in for application developers, and can almost use it as a whole means of distribution for applications that's not been possible before.
Got it. This sounds like I have a lot of friends in the Amazon seller space. Like, you build up a business on Amazon selling diapers in Brazil, children's diapers, and you build that business up, and then you can sell that business to somebody else. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's
that's right.
Dan, yeah. How do you like me bridging NFTs and Tetris to diapers in Brazil? Does that ring true for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, both really fun games. With huge upside. I mean, people always got to poop in Brazil, They got poop everywhere.
Yeah.
And Brazil.
I agree.
Yeah.
And Brazil.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to do the data on that's actually, is there a place in the world where, let's go down this rabbit hole. We already started.
I know where you're going. I'm going to meet you at the end of the rabbit hole, I think.
Yeah. Where pooping is more prevalent based on diet, and how would you even go about measuring?
I'll tell you, it's.
I know that, and this is a future episode of your show.
Yeah, so it's anytime Australians go on vacation to Bali. Bali is their their kind of like Mexico, like cheaper like vacation destination. So my wife is Australian anyway. It's called Bali Belly. So if you can market an adult diaper to Australians who are specifically in Bali and drink the water and get diarrhea, I think that is like $1 billion, possibly $1 trillion proposition.
This is what talent. This is what talent gets you, folks. Mm-hmm. When you have talented people on a call, you come up with $1 billion ideas like Bali Belly diapers for Australian
possibly trillion.
Tourists.
Yeah, the upside is
possibly
endless.
Trillion. I mean, you heard it here first.
Yeah, from what I've heard, the flow of shit is for many, many days endless, and that's just cha-ching, for us.
Don, where in the world do you think NFT adoption comes from? Since we're talking about global, is it used? We talk a lot about in the crypto world. Hey, at least the edict early was you don't need an email address, you don't need a bank account. This is going to change the world of remittances, and you could really make a case for that across India, Turkey. You see a lot of users. Is there any geographical thing and focus where NFTs really will take off, or the second part is a sector? Like how does the larger population kind of access this, or where your prediction?
So I don't think that it will be confined by geography. We're certainly seeing the most adoption in, North America, Europe, parts of Asia, especially like Korea. And I think that growth is going to continue. I think we in the crypto space need to make sure that we're building mobile first experiences, especially to reach some of those other parts of the world where mobile adoption is really the default over your computer, your desktop. But I don't think that growth's really going to be confined. I think sector is interesting. You're seeing a lot in the electronic space LG, for instance, is, creating their own fashion NFTs, looking to integrate those across their product suites, everything from smart mirrors to, refrigerators. But ultimately, it's going to be the creator space, the brand space that continues to drive the most growth. I think, again, that idea of how this new asset can be used to reach fan bases more efficiently and more actively is going to continue to drive value. And we'll see more artists, more creators, more teams, more brands issue NFT collections as a means to do that.
Don, it's like you are in my head and you know what we're going to talk about next. Whenever I say brand, you say Dan. I say brand, you say
brand again. Brand a second time. Yeah.
Brand a second time. I was thinking I was going for the survey says I was going for the word loyalty, and I want to talk about loyalty, but I didn't lead you fully in that direction. So Don, let's talk about brand loyalty, right? And as much as you're able to share, I'd love to hear what NFT.com is talking about for partnerships. And, the big one you hear about a lot is, right, either Nike acquiring a company to do this with their sneakers, or Starbucks working on Polygon or something like this to talk about customer loyalty. And can you just break that out for us a little bit? And then as much as you're able to share partnerships that you guys are working on, not just as the individual, I buy, sell my collectible, or I'm playing it at a game, but now during my day, I do go to Starbucks, I do go to sporting events. Can you just walk us through that?
I think it's all about that recurring engagement. People have moved past the partnership as a means to just create a collectible, get some money from your fans for selling the thing, and move on. When we talk with brands and organizations, it's much more looking at their aggregate portfolio of maybe artists, of IP, of events that they do, and say, how can you create a recurring fan experience, leveraging NFTs as a part of that, as opposed to just selling the NFT as an asset. So there's a few ways that can kind of surface. It can look like an access pass for VIPs at an event, at a music venue, for example. It could be recurring engagement with an artist itself, in addition to purchasing of maybe a unique piece of artwork or a unique piece of music that they did. It can even be more advanced in the form of selling tokenized ownership to catalogs or different portfolios owned by that brand. And really tying experiences from, again, an in-stadium concert to somebody being back at home and wanting to interact with, videos or pictures from that concert. So all summed, it's about that recurring fan engagement that's really motivating the brands that we work with in the space.
I love it. And are you able to share any particular deals or brands or launches? And where are you guys? I mean, as I asked that, like, are we live? Yeah. Can Dan do this now? Are we on testnet? Are you all of those great things?
So part depends on when we publish this. So maybe you can tell me that. But right now we're in private beta, so you can access it through our community of Genesis key holders. But we'll be launching soon to the public, where anybody will be able to access NFT.com, create their profile to buy and sell NFTs without fees, and start to really build their NFT collection or take their first step into the space by creating an NFT profile.
And I know what Dan's going to ask, which is who are the celebrities here? Like, there's got to be. Can you give us any alpha on, like, hey, Dan, the Italian last name, is the first. I mean, hugely popular in the Fort Worth area. Is the first to launch. I mean, are you able to share some of that, or is that just wait and see for us?
That'll be wait and see for now. But there's an incredible number of creators that are working with us, working in the NFT space. So it's going to be really exciting for our upcoming public launch.
Oh my God, I can't wait. All right, I'm shifting, Don. So we were talking a little bit about Australia. We mentioned Bali. We mentioned a few other places in the world. I want to go a little bit off to maybe your decision making. I read this great book. That's a lie. I heard a podcast and started to listen to an audiobook. And I really want to be clear on this. I think a lot of people say I read this book and I don't actually know if they do. I even did it. So I listened to a great podcast of a woman named Annie Duke on Invest Like the Best with Patrick O'Shaughnessy. And she is the sister of Phil Hellmuth, the professional poker player. And she's talking about grit versus quit, that we celebrate grit and that quitting, we don't celebrate. You're a loser if you quit. And she then says they're essentially the same decision on decision making, right? Something, if you grit through something, you're choosing not to quit it. And if you quit something, you're choosing not to grit through it. So this is a little bit of a scenario. So Dan, we can send it over to you after this for your question to Don. But Don, you're in a developing world. You're kind of without your phone. You're without resources, right? You're trying to either get home or you're trying to, no money on you, et cetera. Who are the first two people that you try to get in touch with?
Oh, that took a last minute curve there that I was not expecting.
Or one, who's someone that you would really trust and why to reach out?
Yeah, I think there's, probably one of two. Certainly my fiance would be somebody I'd get in touch with pretty quick, as she's, let's just say, able to coordinate the resources, should I need a rescue. And then the second would probably be my CEO, Jordan, just because from a guy with the most connections, he's probably one of the better ones to get into touch with, that might have a guy somewhere that can, help you get out of a sticky situation, or just tell you where to go.
I like that. And this is Jordan Freed from Immutable Holdings, which is the holding company that owns NFT.com.
That's right. Yep.
Perfect. Dan, I'm going to set you up so perfectly for this next question. You're going to want to come back on this podcast. So, Don, you don't know this about Dan, but Dan is recently married.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. Well, we're divorced. It only lasted 9 months. They say the first 9 months is the toughest of the forever,
Dan, what advice or questions do you have for Don as he is, see, I'm choking, as a non-married guy, I'm like, I can't even talk
Commitment.
About this. Commitment. As coming up on being newly married. Dan, any questions, comments, advice coming from your sagely 9 months? I mean, this is, the first 9 months are important.
I would say, if you are not marrying an Australian, marrying somebody who is from close to where you are. Are you marrying somebody who lives within the continental United States? Because does that save some time and money?
All right, one for one, just like your NFT.com guessing here.
Great,
one for one so far.
And then, how's the wedding planning coming? Would be the next. Where are we?
Pretty much done.
Oh God. That's
we got a good wedding planner, so we've been getting somebody else to manage this product. I'll put it that way.
That's great. Yeah. And then this is not a question, but just a statement. I was able to keep my wedding to 11 people. That was one of the Mount Rushmore of my accomplishments. An 11 person wedding it's undefeated. I haven't met anybody who's done something close to that. So that's you're in the presence
that hasn't eloped, right? I mean, I think eloping is the right.
Yeah.
There's the neutral, but you're saying while planning, and only having 11 people.
Both sets of parents approved, no baby involved, no government. We kept it to 11 people. So it is possible.
Dan, that sounds like a libertarian wedding to a T.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we didn't even marry each other. We just married the free market. Like that was the ceremony.
I love it. Don, how do you feel about that advice? I mean, good
stuff. All sage advice, I must say. That's stuff I'll have to jot down and get working on.
All right. Well, let's keep going here a little bit. So, Don, obviously, I've worked with you now since 2017. I've always been very impressed with your what I call, politics aside, your Obama cool. Just your rather, I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening both when you were at IBM, Hedera, et cetera, and now with NFT.com it's just like a lot of stuff always coming at you, from like finding clients to organizing a product to organizing a launch, right? And having users, a test net. So within this, my words, not yours, Obama cool kind of vibes, the question is, what was your life like before the age of 14 or 18 that kind of made you in this way? I mean, how did you seem to naturally do this in a really, easy way? Maybe it's not easy, but If you could walk us through, like, what were you like your younger life? A lot of people talk about, look, who I was before the age of 14 sometimes makes me up as the entrepreneur or professional I am today.
Yeah, I would probably put it to three things. One was having an older brother, which if either you know, necessitates quite a bit of healthy and unhealthy competition in life, which is always good for being the basis for how you approach wanting to win in a career. The second I would probably put to being lucky enough to kind of spend time outdoors, just having to fill my own time, whether that's going on an adventure in the woods behind our house or, just building something on the weekend. That was really all my responsibility was filling up that time. But then I think third, and, this is going to out me as a nerd. I was lucky enough to do policy high school debate in school. And I think that skill set, that as my pastime was formative in thinking in the problem solution mindset, and helped me to get some of those competitive juices out in a more productive way as well.
Let's dig into that. That's great, Don. I love the third part here on debate, and I've seen this. So look, former actor here, Dan, stand-up comedian, and you doing like kind of debate. I think all of these are great skill sets. When people ask me, I say, take an acting class. Dan would probably say, hey, write your own jokes, get up on stage. So for you, can you just dig into the debate? I just love that. Like, and how that's shaped specifically your day job, because I've never been on the debate team. I'd like to think I'm good at debates, but sometimes I'm maybe a little bit too emotional about an argument.
I think that's the two most valuable things I took from debate. One is that, every meeting, conversation, topic you're thinking through is a set of problem statements and points, right? And however emotional or chaotic those types of settings can get, at the end of the day, there's probably, 3 to 5 things that are actually the issues that matter that you need to engage on. And so that idea of being able to say, I heard what you said. These are the 3 things of substance that I know you need a response on. And here's my response to those 3 to 5 things specifically, I think has always helped from a communication perspective, from a productivity perspective, you name it. But then the other is this idea of something I like to call, or that is called, I don't want to take credit for it, switch side debate. The beauty of something like debate.
Switch side debate.
That's right. Okay. The beauty, of a debate tournament is that you, in your first round, might need to say that global warming is real. It's caused by, production of CO2, et cetera, which it is. But then the next round, you might have an opponent who makes that argument, and you have to take the inverse of it. And you have to do your best to find whatever evidence you can to counter that point, the same one that you just as aggressively made in favor of immediately prior. And that idea to kind of switch your mindset between two contradictory ideas, or hold both of those ideas in your head at once and know, not only the truth through each, but how you can approach each argument, helps, not only in terms of decision making and processing, but also with empathy. If you can approach a problem and say, I know what I would need to say if this was the belief that I held, I think you can understand people a lot more. So that was my other best lesson from my time in debate.
Too good. Dan, we're gonna wrap it up in a little bit, but I want to know what would switch side comedy look like?
I think it's still I think you can see it with like really good comedians of like, here is an indefendable position, undefensible, and you present it as a premise. Like, I think, short people are annoying, which is like not true. And like, or something like that. And then via jokes, by making people laugh, it makes people at least not ever come around to the original premise, but softens them to like, okay, maybe you're making some good points, because laughter is agreement pretty much. But I think with comedy, it's kind of more nihilistic of like, I really don't care if, I don't think any comedians, like you have Jim Jeffries with guns, you could argue that pushes kind of like social, like a great bit like that kind of pushes the ball forward on like social issues. But I think most of the times it's like, what if I said that farts smell good? And then it's not true. But then by the end of the bit, by the end of the 4 minutes, people come around and like, okay, maybe. Like, but that's also for no reason.
Dan, I think that's been studied in the Bali Belly study that we referenced earlier. I feel like that was probably part of it. Was a footnote in that document. So if anybody's looking for this research, please hit up nft.com/Dan Italian last name. For some info here. Look, gentlemen, this has been great. Don, thank you so much for being on. Always a big fan of what you do. Hopefully you come back on the show and tell us what's happening with NFT.com in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the time. It was great to chat. And Dan, hopefully we've gotten you at least to like a 3.5, maybe 4 on the NFT scale, but you're dangerous now.
I'm feeling good about it. I'll be there for the launch, whether you want me or not.
Dan, awesome. I want a crypto comedy bit in your next set.
Hey, let's do it.
All right, gentlemen, have a great day. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you on the next episode of Long Live Crypto. Have a great week.
Thank you for listening. If you've been enjoying Long Live Crypto, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's a great way to help others find the show.